My name is Victor Fuhrman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. In the classic film series The Matrix, Morpheus counsels the awakening Neo by saying, "You have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind." Do you ever have a sense that you are in a living matrix-like existence? Have the events of 2020 raised doubt about what is true and what is not? Are you seeking clarity and a reconnection to Source in a pure and loving way? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Brad Olsen, has been on a lifelong international quest for answers and truth. Brad Olsen is author of 10 books, including 3 in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric, Future Esoteric, and the just-released Beyond Esoteric. An award-winning author, book publisher, and event producer, his keynote presentations and interviews have enlightened audiences at Contact in the Desert, UFO Mega Conference, the 5D events, and dozens of radio, including Coast to Coast, Ground Zero, and Fade to Black, and television shows, including Ancient Aliens, America Unearthed, Beyond Belief, and Mysteries of the Outdoors. Brad is a founder and co-founder of the How Weird Street Fair in the Soma neighborhood of San Francisco. The Chicago native's esoteric writing continues to reach a wide audience while he continues breaking ground in alternative journalism, public speaking, illustration, and photography. His website is bradolsen.com, and he joins me again this week to discuss the latest and most revealing of his esoteric series, Beyond Esoteric. Please welcome back to Destination Unlimited, my friend Brad Olsen. Welcome, Brad.
Hi, Victor. It's great to be back. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Brad.
It's always a pleasure.
I'm just going to tell our listeners that you and I first met at Book Expo America in New York about 10 years ago now. We were introduced by David Hatcher Childress, who most listeners know from Ancient Aliens. And Brad has graced Destination Unlimited 3 times with his experience and wisdom, so it's really good to have you back.
Oh, it's so wonderful to be back. And wow, what a great friendship we've had. And you've seen my books through the years, and we've done interviews, and really great to have an old friend like you in radio, and wonderful to talk to you on your new show.
Thank you so much, Brad. So for our audience meeting you for the first time, please share your path and how it led you to investigate mysteries, travel to sacred places, and explore the esoteric.
Well, it started with world travel. Right out of college, I self-financed all my trips, but the first one was backpacking around Europe for 3 months. Thought I was so cool being out on the road, one of the few Americans in the late 1980s. And I started bumping into Australians and Kiwis. And how long you been on the road, mate? Oh, 3 months. 3 months? We've been on the road for 3 years. So I was very curious to find out how they did that. And it's basically working your way around the world, which I did. And that's my first book called World Stompers, based on that. Still in print today and still inspiring people to go travel the world when it's not a lockdown. But I was able to travel all through my 90s, in the early 1990s, taking their advice by teaching English in Japan, and also then backpacking around the world and getting a great perspective. So that's what led me into travel writing and writing the Sacred Places 108 Destination series of guidebooks, because I have had the real great honor, I think, is how I feel about it, of having the opportunity to travel the world. And now I've been to all 7 continents. Just early last year, I made it to Antarctica and rounded out the big 7. And it's just given me an incredible perspective on the world and a lot of the mysteries there within. And that is the birth of the Esoteric series.
So the Sacred Places 108 Destination series was the first thing that I interviewed you on. Please share with our listeners who are meeting you for the first time some of those wonderful places that you visited and what you found there.
When I was traveling around the world, I was just gravitating to these really amazing locations, as would anybody else. For example, when you're in Agra, India, you go to the Red Fort and you go to the Taj Mahal. And just being so amazed with the beauty and the architecture of how the ancients, and in the not too distant past as well, created their monuments to peace and the best their civilization had to show. This is what led to the Sacred Places guides. But then other locations like the Great Pyramid, which only got a 4 or 5 page treatment in Sacred Places around the world, had so many more mysteries that were worth exploring. That, I would say, is the one monument, if there was a place in the world, that really triggered the idea of doing this whole 3-book esoteric series, with Beyond Esoteric Escaping Prison Planet just being the latest release.
And you had mentioned your last trip to the Antarctic. What was that like?
Oh, it was hard travel. I won't say anything different because we had to cross the Drake Passage in stormy seas on a sailboat. Oh. Got very ill with seasickness and lost about 25 pounds on that trip. But when we were down there, it was just absolutely stunningly beautiful in a very desolate kind of way. There's just so little civilization or signs thereof that when you do finally see a research station off in the distance, little more than a couple buildings, it just seems like such a milestone, such an amazing feat to get to these places where there are other people. So the wildlife and the scenery are just off the hook beautiful. The animals have really no fear of people. We had whales swimming under our boat and penguins and dolphins in the Beagle Channel when we were leaving, swimming alongside the boat for miles and miles. And the seals and the elephant seals, they just have no fear of humans. So it's just such a joy to get up close and personal with all that nature and just see the glaciers coming right to the ocean and calving and big icebergs floating by. Truly a surreal experience to think it's still here on planet Earth.
And any unusual encounters down there?
Well, that was my main goal. And as far as I know, I'm the only researcher in this field to make a stab at going down there and asking questions and inquiring about whether there are massive craft under the ice, whether there was antediluvian civilizations that are being uncovered, and whether there's paranormal or anomalous or pyramids poking through the ice. Anything of that sort that we've heard so much about, I went down there to try to get to the bottom of it. And while for those subjects I just mentioned, very little came of it, I did find some other things that are still very interesting and which I speak at conferences in my talk called The Hidden Anomalies of Antarctica, and show a bunch of slides and different images from around the Palmer Peninsula, primarily where I went, but also some of the science projects that are going down there, as well as the speculation of what might be there.
Absolutely. You know, my wife, Lori Sue, and I, we met you personally when we traveled out to California a few years back and had some wonderful time with you. She's had a calling to travel to Glastonbury, and I always wanted to go to Stonehenge. We're actually contemplating doing that before COVID-19 hit, and perhaps next year when things are clear and it's safe to travel again, we may go. What are some of the legendary and enchanted places that you found while traveling in the United Kingdom?
That destination you want to go to is one of the greatest in the world, Stonehenge, up there with the Great Pyramids and Angkor Wat, as these monuments to humanity that are just so incredibly profound when you get to see them and experience them up close. Stonehenge, especially on the solstice dates, when it can be determined that Stonehenge itself is very much a solar calendar and can predict the solstice dates as they rise right up over the heel stone on the winter solstice coming up in a couple days. And also nearby, you mentioned Glastonbury, as well as Avebury, which is a large earthen mound henge. And you should definitely see that as well. They're all within 15, 20 miles of each other. Just an incredible landscape of sacred places and truly beautiful monuments of humanity.
And like Peter Gabriel, did you go climbing up on Salisbury Hill?
I know of it, but you're not allowed to climb Silbury Hill, which is that big earthen mound right by Avebury.
Okay.
What's also amazing too, Victor, in this area in the summertime, especially in the fall when the harvest is growing, this is the epicenter of crop circles occurring in the fall time. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people go there to this very region just to check out what new crop circle patterns appear every year.
Did you ever visit the Tor in Glastonbury?
I got close to it, but I didn't go there. I did go to Stonehenge, and I was in Bath. The Roman springs there is worth a visit. And we also went to Plymouth, where the ships that went to the New World and landed at Plymouth Rock. That's the reason it's named that in Massachusetts.
If we have the opportunity to go next year, we'll reach out to you before we leave and help you plan our destinations for us. Now, you also founded your own publishing company, CCC Publishing. What does that stand for, and why did you do it?
That's Consortium of Collective Consciousness, and it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of name. It was a artist warehouse that I was a co-founder of in the mid-1990s. And so many other artists were just blossoming there, and this was a good opportunity for me to start working on my own books in the capacity as a publisher. I had published 2 books with Hunter Publishing, the Extreme Adventure Guides, and then I did my own World Stompers and had much greater success with it. And at that time, there was a hub of digital designers. All the new programs were coming out, and it really leveled the playing field. If you're a good book designer and you know how to package it up right, you can compete with the Random Houses and the other large publishers out there. It really leveled the playing field. And I just got a taste for publishing and just really loved to do it. And then got on with Independent Publishers Group, my distributor, and been with them ever since. And they've been incredibly beneficial partners in the whole publishing landscape. And it has allowed me to then publish other authors such as Leo Lyons-Agami, Lon Milo Duquette. Stephen T. Jones did a great book on the tribes of Burning Man. And all of these subjects I'm very intimate with as well, and in many cases was the editor for each of these books. So it's opened my horizons and kept my product line really just with travel and with esoteric subject matter.
Now, in 2013, you changed your editorial direction and you announced the onset of the Esoteric series. What prompted this?
Well, it was these travel experiences to locations that had, another example I mentioned, the Great Pyramid, such as South America, Sacsayhuaman, and these megalithic sites that really defy explanation to this day. So just having this curiosity not only about the world and some of these fascinating, incredible monuments around, and parlaying that into this whole concept that esoteric is a word that means it's knowledge that is known to and retained by a select few. In fact, when everybody starts to understand these subjects, it actually changes the nature of the word itself, and they become exoteric subjects, when we all know this as the facts and the reality of our world. But as you said in the setup, Victor, our world is seemingly flipping upside down here in 2020, and everything we thought we knew is somehow becoming reversed. And so this is my real fascination with these esoteric subjects.
The first in the series was Future Esoteric, the Unseen Realms. What are the unseen realms?
Well, this is a term out of the 19th century, the occultists and the spiritualists who were very, very prominent, talking to spirits, seances and so forth. Harry Houdini was originally a debunker of it, and then he came to be able to communicate with his mother, and as the story goes, recanted and began to believe it. Many of these unseen realms also deal with forces of nature, as well as new advents in medicine as well. For example, wave frequency is a technique that was used by Royal Raymond Rife in the 1930s, and he was ruthlessly suppressed. And it's only now you can delay science, but you can never stifle out the truth. Only now is this coming around some 85 years after Royal Raymond Rife was making his breakthroughs, and it has the potential to absolutely revolutionize medicine. And so this is a very promising esoteric subject that could become exoteric if it started to become adapted on a greater scale. And so there's so many subjects, as you know, in that book. But actually, Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series. It just happened to come out right before Modern Esoteric because it was the one ready to go. Modern Esoteric came out the following year. But Modern Esoteric is called Beyond Our Senses. And that's everything looking back from these antediluvian civilizations all the way up to this modern age, where Future Esoteric then looks into more of the extraterrestrial question and the secret state, which has kept it all bottled up, including a lot of this technology that has the potential to absolutely revolutionize the people on this planet.
Talk a little more about that medical technology from the 1930s that was suppressed.
Oh, it's such a heartbreak. This good-hearted scientist was using these microscopes that could look at our cellular level, including invasive species. Royal Raymond Rife was very interested in cancer and how it could grow out of control. So what he found was that everything in nature, all matter, has a certain frequency. A good example that I use in some of my talks is we have all seen an opera singer shatter a wine glass with her voice. Well, right there, that is frequency and sound. Everything has a frequency. And so what Royal Raymond Rife was able to do was identify the parasitic or pathogenic or cancer cells that were invasive. And he was able to use his, with the microscope combined with some of this wave frequency technology, was able to just shatter the cancer apart, just blow it up, break it up, and the body would then flush it out and the person would be cancer free. He was having such tremendous success with it. They came down on him so hard, they shut him down in a roundabout way, destroyed his laboratory and research, even started pressing charges against this poor guy. And he was just a genius ahead of his time who only wanted to help people out. So that's kind of what we're up against, is we've had this, let's call them the cabal for lack of a better term, that have been very money hungry, that are very monopolistic and will corner any market. And if someone comes in with a breakthrough technology, they'll squash them like a cockroach, just as they did to the great Nikola Tesla.
I was just going to say, it almost sounds like what happened to Tesla.
It is what happened to Tesla. And this is the great disservice that this form of capitalistic, predatory, monetary system that we've been under has allowed to occur, because this should never have happened.
For those who are not aware, Nikola Tesla was on the verge of giving the world basically free electricity, wasn't he?
He sure was.
And guess what happened? The powers that be, the Westinghouses and the Edisons came around and said, we can't make any money that way. And they basically shut him down. And when he died, he was virtually penniless.
Such a shame. The greatest mind of the 20th century. I mean, really blows away Edison. Edison wishes he had some of the Tesla technology. In fact, even ripped him off when it came to the AC-DC current system, which we still use to this day. That was a Tesla discovery. Edison was all about direct current. We just got to pump the lines with direct current. And he would do these sadistic things like electrocute an elephant to prove that DC was the way to go. Really bizarre man. But Tesla, he was a humanist. And these are the people I admire. And these are the kind of people that I profile within the pages of the Esoteric series. those that really wanted to make a difference and a change for humanity. And those are the ones that history will remember.
And I hope history remembers Mr. Brad Olsen. He's my guest tonight. Brad, please tell our listeners where they can find out more about your work and all of your books.
Well, please visit cccpublishing.com if you're interested in my books. And we have the Google Books app on it, so you can browse through the pages just as you would in a bookstore. Find out more about me at bradolsen.com. And I also have a YouTube channel with the audiobook chapters from the first 2 in the Esoteric series that people can watch and listen to free. When I had a radio show, I was just recording my chapters sometime as well. So that's kind of fun. Just you can find me on Facebook and Twitter as well. I just was going to say, for YouTube app, they can Google you with your name and say your name plus YouTube, and that'll come up, right? Should work that way. Wonderful. We'll be back with more of Brad Olsen after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes. Co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
Know that feeling? Like every door is closing and you just can't see a way out? Being unemployed, underemployed, or just out of school feels a lot like that. But when you find the right tools, suddenly, everything just clicks. Getting on that path may be easier than you think. A good place to start? Go to findsomethingnew.org. At findsomethingnew.org, you have access to resources that help develop new skills. Skills that will position you for careers in today's growing industries, from healthcare and manufacturing to cybersecurity and alternative energy. Plus, you can take advantage of online courses, certification programs, apprenticeships, and more. So you can take yourself from unemployed and uncertain to empowered and prepared for what's next. Find your path to a new career today. Visit findsomethingnew.org. A message from the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Brad Olsen. I'm getting old, Brad. I tell you, I'm getting old. Anyway, so we were talking about the Esoteric series, and actually the first book in the series, as you had mentioned, was Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses. The second book, Future Esoteric, The Unseen Realms, and the reason I had them reversed is because Future Esoteric actually had an earlier publication date, even though that was the second book. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. Was just released about a year before Modern. Those two are pretty much concurrent together. And Beyond Esoteric took me 6 years to put it all together.
I
never repeat my material and always have some of these chapters lying in wait. But now it's perfect time to release.
So let's talk a little bit about modern esoteric beyond our senses. The book is divided in 3 sections: lifology, control, and thrive. You called lifology the alternative narrative to life on Earth. What does that mean?
Well, this is how we're starting to redate the human experience on this planet. And as we were talking about in the first part, from the great monuments of humanity, especially the megalithic designs, to what we see as the lost civilization that had once been on this planet. For example, there's now evidence of underwater, under the ocean, architectural features that could only have been made a long, long time ago when these lands were above ground. So it's redating everything, and even the more recent finds, like Göbekli Tepe, has these new dating to it that is even older than the pyramids, oldest monuments on Earth at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. So everything keeps getting dated older and older and older. And so then when you also factor in how these giants have been discovered and these out-of-place artifacts of, say, a mechanical gear system found in a million-year-old seam of coal, which I have a picture in Modern Esoteric of, that it really takes us really far back. And then the teachings and writings of Madame Blavatsky, who's had 4 previous root races of high civilization on this planet, starting with the Hyperboreans a million years ago, to Lemuria, and then the one we're most frequently accustomed to is Atlantis. So Modern Esoteric points out a lot of that in the first section of Modern Esoteric to get us up to this modern age. And then the control is the control system that has been placed on this planet for so long, and how we've been denied many of our God-given abilities to utilize our pineal gland, to wake up, to understand all this, but we keep getting suppressed down here again and again. And that's why I call it the prison planet, because we really have to know where we are to be able to have a plan to get out.
Let's go back for a second and talk about some of the ancient findings that are taking place. We know that there have been extinction events on this planet. An asteroid hit in the area of the Yucatan Peninsula, and that supposedly wiped out the dinosaurs. But have there been other events of that nature, do you think?
There have been, and there is great evidence that there have been multiple cataclysms on this planet, that the continents definitely do shift and move around. In my presentation on Antarctica, I show that dinosaur species lived in Antarctica, and they needed to be in hot, temperate climates to be able to exist, especially the ones in the water. And they found plesiosaurs, the Loch Ness Monster species, as well as unique species that have only been found in Antarctica. So we know the continents move around. There are pole shifts. There are periodic periods on this planet with great upheavals, volcanism, tidal waves. And you got to keep in mind that we live mostly on a water planet. The land masses are only 21% of this planet. So when you get those big bowls of water shaken, they can do a lot of destruction. And that's why we find these very trace reminders of the antediluvian civilizations of the past. Most have just been washed over, lost in time, or sunk into the bottom of the ocean. But they're there if you look around, and then it starts to create this beautiful mosaic of previous high civilizations that had existed on this planet.
And when we talk high civilizations, we talk about technological civilizations.
Well, that's correct. And that's what makes it so interesting when you see, for example, about 15 years ago, I have images of this in Future Esoteric of discovering, actually, no, it's in Modern Esoteric, of discovering a whole Mayan-like city off the coast of Cuba. And it has pyramids, it has a central plaza, it has a large center pyramid at the top of the plaza, it's just absolutely remarkable that you can have these incredible findings that totally revolutionize our history of the ancient world, yet they haven't really caught up in mainstream media or academia, and don't get talked about as much as they should.
Now, you had mentioned the suppression of the pineal gland, which in the Eastern philosophies is called the third eye. What has been done to stop us from really opening that third eye and using it to sense things?
Well, this is perhaps one of the greatest tragedies of all, and there's a whole chapter in Modern Esoteric in the control section on the pineal gland. And the reason it's in the control section is because it has been actively suppressed in the human race. It's known that fluoride, which we get in the water, from toothpaste, from other nefarious ways of getting it into our system, attracts to the pineal gland and actually calcifies it. I show numerous studies in this chapter about not only how that effect happens, but also how to try to decalcify the pineal gland. And I know there's a growing movement of people that are doing this. And once you do it, it is the key that unlocks all of these superhuman abilities, or a great many of them, most especially the ability to have that Kundalini moment, which is akin to enlightenment. I do believe that when the Buddha had that moment of enlightenment, he was also activating his full Kundalini, his light body, these energy centers that go up through the human body. And there's a figure on the cover of Modern Esoteric whose 6 main chakras are illuminated. And this is a very important thing to the people of the East. And I think my ability to write these books, Victor, is largely predicated on the fact that I've spent many years abroad, many of those years in Asia, and absorbing and really fully integrating Eastern with my Western philosophy and finding this beautiful integration of all that is whole. And that is what I believe is the Philosopher's Stone, is really finding this unified theory of everything, of all of it tying together. And as far as the human body goes and the mind achieving greatness and freedom in many ways, it's all about the pineal gland. And once that's activated, we become multidimensional human beings. We'll have the ability to read people's auras. And by doing so, there won't be any liars in the world anymore. You'd be able to read right through them, as I think we're already starting to be able to do. It's going to get harder and harder for thieves and criminals to get away with it, because they're all just going to have this auric colors around them that people would be able to see. And this will be the justice system of the world. We'll just all know when somebody lies. It's just going to be intuitive. That's why it's so important right now to be the best person we can be in every way we can.
And you mentioned illumination, and science has actually proven that the human body gives off photons. We give off light.
See, isn't that amazing? It's now when all this stuff starts catching up with our modern science. This is what the occultists and the people who were studying this in the 19th century were starting to say. And it sounded so far out then, but only now are we catching up and realizing this is really the way it is.
And in the book, you say the Thrive section, you say that there's a shift of consciousness which will lead to a new golden age. My sense is we're in the midst of that right now. Am I right?
Yes, you are right. And we are in the midst of it. And some of these things are starting to become true and become exoteric subjects. And I couldn't be happier, because this is such a great time to be alive, to be able to witness this tremendous shift of consciousness. And that's really what it's all about. That's why I have on the back cover of Modern Esoteric, the revolution is consciousness. It's all about the human race waking up and being able to see really right through all of these agendas and this control grid that has been enforced on the human race for so long. And that's why in the last section of Modern Esoteric, which is Thrive, and it's called Utopia and Future Esoteric, and it's called Ubermind in Beyond Esoteric. Because I'm a very positive person, as you know. I like to find these things that are really good for us and helpful and make us think about the incredible human potential that we all have.
Absolutely. And that leads us to Beyond Esoteric. It's an amazing, eye-opening culmination of the series, and it really brings home with tremendous detail what you started in Modern Esoteric. It's a massive book. It's 482 some odd pages, which is filled with amazing information. Your premise is that nothing in the world works the way we are led to believe it does. Are we truly in a matrix?
Well, we truly are, because those who are starting to take the proverbial red pill and starting to have a shift in consciousness and see things the way they really are is this light bulb moment, this 100th monkey effect, which I believe is starting to sweep over all of us. All humans could start to have the same kind of perception towards our role in the world and the cosmos above. And what's so amazing, Victor, is that we still live on this planet where we have humans up at the space station. I do believe that we're beyond and secret space program stuff as well. You've got humans in outer space, even quite possibly a breakaway civilization, as Richard Dolan has quantified, of us humans now living off planet. And you also have uncontacted tribes living in the Amazon and upper valleys of Papua New Guinea. You still have Stone Age humans and space off-planet people, and we're still the same human race. So another reason why this is just such an incredible moment in history to watch all of this stuff start to unfold, and for humans, for the very first times in their lives, to free ourselves from the shackles of bondage and really become the full potential that we each have.
Is there a colony on the moon?
Oh, I believe there are several colonies on the moon, not only of our own breakaway civilization, but even more humans reside on Mars. The moon is a mining planet. It's good for a jump-off point, but the real prize outside of Earth is Mars. And I have spoken at many conferences with some of these super soldiers who are coming out of the secret space program, now starting to tell their stories of 20 years in the service, coming back. And it's incredible to try to comprehend that we have had humans going off planet really for decades. There's a chapter in Beyond Esoteric, if you've gotten to it yet, called Alternative 1, 2, and 3. And Alternative 1 is this cockamamie idea of blasting holes in the atmosphere to let the pollution escape. And that turned into, it was such a disaster. That's what the whole holes in the ozone was all about. But really, I think it was a secret attack on the Nazi base in New Schwabenland. But we talk about that later. Alternative 2 is going deep underground. And these were all recommendations from the great think tanks of the 1950s and 60s, that these are the alternatives for humanity because our population's going out of control and we're going to trash this planet. And then Alternative 3 is going off planet. And we've been doing this for decades. And so there was this great series that was playing in the UK, kind of like a science show. And it happened to be on April 1st when they did a show called Alternative 3. And so many people believed it, but it was based on fact. And that's why it was believable that there was a great brain drain. And sometimes these scientists, when they go on the 20 and back programs, they go missing for quite a while. And some people were calling in and saying, yes, I'm looking for my missing scientist husband, been gone for 8 years, and I saw your show. It was almost their War of the Worlds moment in the UK when this broadcast. Of course, I tell the story of it in Beyond Esoteric. And it is, art imitates life, Victor, as you know, and some of these things get pre-announced in such ways that they become predictive programming. So they're giving us the truth, but sort of disguising it in Hollywood movies or, pretending it's make-believe. Why do you think these superhero movies are so popular? What does it show? Humans with superhuman abilities. What I've been saying, the real superhuman abilities that we can then cultivate in ourselves, such as telepathy, such as being able to astral travel, such as someday using telekinesis, like Luke Skywalker getting the lightsaber using his mind.
My guest is Brad Olsen. We're going to be getting more into Beyond Esoteric in the next segment, and we'll be back with more of Brad after these words on the OMTimes radio network.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for inspired conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Brad Olsen. We're talking about his brand new book, Beyond Esoteric. Since 2016, Brad, the term fake news has been used to describe much of what used to be mainstream journalism. Are we being deceived by the media? Is there a big lie?
I take a rightful shot at mainstream media in all three of the books just because it has become so surreal the way they're able to put out such whoppers sometimes. Oh, yes, it's leading us down, I think, a very dangerous path. A funny example I tell is when the Soviet Union was around and the one newspaper, the main paper, was called Pravda. And everybody in Russia knew that it was propaganda. It became a joke. If Pravda said it, actually what is really happening is the opposite. So they're saying for us as well, in the Soviet times, we used to have Pravda and everyone knew it propaganda. You in America, you've got propaganda. You don't even know it. So look, this is the globalist voice piece. If you really want to know what the cabal wants you to think, then that's your go-to. But it has just fallen apart with all credibility to any free thinker I know, to the point where it's just laughably incorrect. And the thing about it, Victor, I have a whole section on this about how they did it in the neo-fascism section, the first section of Beyond Esoteric. They were able to just water down the truth in advertising, the truth in news laws called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of the 1950s in the Golden Age. And then you have Cronkite come out, the most believable man in America, and Richard Nixon saying, the American people won't believe anything until the television tells them so. So they know the power of this device. They know the power of the mass media. And we know that Operation Mockingbird through the CIA has been infecting all these organizations since. So yeah, if you want the CIA's view on something, which are known distorters, distractors, and did MK Ultra psyops on all us, sure, that's your go-to. Go get it from the CIA and their 4 a.m. talking points. So it's just become a surreal facade, is a good way to put it, that I absolutely stay away from it. And the few times I catch it in the airport or somewhere else, it's just so laughably directing people's attention to what they want you to think. It is mind-shaping, it's propaganda, and it's rarely going to be beneficial to the individual.
You know, it just brought me back to a memory. There was a movie a few years back starring Roddy Piper. I can't remember the name of the movie. Maybe it was Them. They Live. That was it. And if you had a certain pair of glasses, you could put it on, and when you saw the screen, they were not human beings that were there.
That's right.
So you talked about fiction becoming closer to the truth, right?
There you go. Once again, a great reveal. Oh, that's like The Matrix, one of those go-to movies that a lot of people in the truth movement, conspiracy researchers, one of our go-to films is They Live. Yeah, for sure.
So you say the fake news is a tool of the neo-fascism. What is the neo-fascist movement and what is its goal?
Well, they did a study even in the 19th century that all they had to do is buy up the top editors of the top papers to start controlling and shaping the narrative. See, that's what's so very important to these control groups right now, Victor. It's money. They've got it all. Business, they got that boxed up. They got pretty much everything going in their favor. But what they don't have and what they're most afraid of is the narrative shifting away from them. And this is exactly what's happening with the whole fake news movement. People just don't believe it anymore. We can't be fooled that many times before we just raise our hand and say, I call BS. So when you look at it deeper and start seeing the whole machination of how the CIA got away from us, and they've gone rogue. They're totally out there doing their own thing with their own financing, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens because something major has already happened with them. I know we don't want to get political, but there are changes to the CIA that could be coming soon. And it's well-deserved because they have done a lot of dirty business. And some of that dirty business, as the chapter in Beyond Esoteric on MK Ultra perfectly illustrates, they've done it to all of us. And these are the psychological operations or psyops. And it has to come to a stop. It will come to a stop eventually if we're allowed to grow and evolve and we all start to say, for example, become telepathic and read auras. Then it becomes what I call the age of transparency. And I illustrated that earlier about how we just start to see things for the way it is. And you can't fool or lie or trick the people anymore because it just won't appear credible whatsoever. So that is what's happening across the board, most especially in the mainstream media, trying to keep all these narratives intact, but they're all crumbling at the core. Because the thing about the truth is, Victor, think of it like a constant, like a pillar. And you can dress it up all these different ways. You can put pig on a lipstick on a pig and all these different ways to make the truth seem different ways. But all that stuff eventually just falls away. And what do you have left? Truth. The pillar. It always stands.
Speaking of pillars, in 1980, the Georgia Guidestones were built. And it basically said that the population of the Earth had to be reduced to a certain number for viability's sake. Is this what we're talking about?
That's exactly what we're talking about. Look, there's this concept of free will that we all have, that any thinking human has to at least be given the opportunity to know what's being done to them. And even if it's done in a very veiled kind of way, such as the messages on the Georgia Guidestone, it is a way that we've all had the free will to learn that it says that according to this anonymous cabal globalist who put it up called R.C. Christian, that Earth needs to be maintained in the balance of 500 million people. Well, last I checked, we're getting close to 8 billion. So this George Guidestone first tenement or commandment, which is a total bastardization of that word, is saying that we need to depopulate this planet by 90%. Okay? So it's right there in your face. They're saying it. It's still there. It's up for all the world to see. So if you happen to just blow that off or not care or not be concerned, well, in their mind, you get what you get from us because we gave you those warnings. You had the free will to do something about it and you didn't. So that's why I have to say to people, to understand what's going on in our world today and what is happening to all of us is in your best interest. It might actually preserve your health or even save your life. And if you don't, then there is a depopulation agenda out there. And yes, it's even written in stone.
Yeah, really written in stone. The other thing that we've noticed, especially this year, is this drip, drip, drip of little bits of information about ET presence being leaked out by the government. In fact, on December 8th this month, U.S. media shared a story that the former head of Israel's Defense Ministry space program, Chaim Eshed, said that the U.S. and Israel have been in touch with an ET group called the Galactic Federation. What's your take on this?
I love all these stories. It's vindicating all of us who have been researching UFOs and ETs for decades. Even more credible is what the Pentagon is coming out and saying, that they've been tracking these unidentified aerial vehicles and they're not, quote, not made of this world, and defying the laws of physics and gravity and making these erratic turns that no plane that we know of can make those kind of maneuvers. So this is all just coming together all at once. And isn't it funny that we're just so captured with all these other stories that do seem to be disinformation, where the real meat, the whole disclosure movement, is throwing their fists up in the air and say, there we go. This is what we've been saying for years. We're finally vindicated for all the arrows we took for sticking our neck out there and saying, hey, wait a minute, look at all these sightings of these anomalous vehicles, people getting abducted, to downed craft and backward engineering. Well, now it's all true. Yeah. So these are becoming exoteric subjects, but it still needs to get into the whole mind or consciousness or this egregore of the world to really be known to all. So it's still technically it's very esoteric, but the drip, drip, drip of disclosure is now flood, flood, flood of the breaking dam of information that's just coming out at an extraordinary pace.
You do give us hope. You say that we can transcend the big lie, know what is true or not, and become a higher form of human.
Well, that's the future goal here for each and every one of us. I think every single person has a reason for being here. When you start waking up to that reason, you realize you really volunteered to be here to help liberate this planet at a very important time, and every single one of us has a role to play. And while we may feel very powerless from being able to go up against the machine, and you're never going to win because they got all the toys and all the money and all the assets and all the power, the only thing you can do is to wake yourself up. The revolution is consciousness. And so it's not so much saying, see, I told you so. It's, hey, join us now. We need the numbers. We need people to start grokking onto this. And once we do, then we start entering the golden age.
And you call that the Uber mind.
Yes. That is the end game. And that's why Uber mind is the final section in Beyond Esoteric. And this is all I got, Victor. These 3 books, I mean, we're talking over 1,400 pages between the 3 of them. It's my life work. It's my best work. And I'm very proud of all 3 books, and most especially this latest one. I think it has the potential to really cap off many of these subjects that have brought up over the years and help people just to realize their role and their place in the world.
Brett Olsen, thank you. Please share with our listeners one more time where they can get your books and find out more about you and all this work.
Yes, please try to look me up on cccpublishing.com, and there's also a contact form, and I do read those. So if you want to be in touch with me, that's probably the best way. BradOlsen.com about all the projects I do. And you can also watch my series, Antarctica by Sail, for free until the end of the year on Sci-Spy TV. And I'm also developing a channel there with different programs, one called the Esoteric Circle and another about travel to sacred places. So you can find me on Sci-Spy TV, and then I also have a YouTube channel, Brad Olsen, CCC Publishing, and follow along and say hi to me on Facebook or something like that, too.
Brad, we don't see each other or talk to each other all the time, but I always consider you to be like a brother. So thank you so much for being here and for all of the work that you do.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Victor. And you're right. We are old pals, and it's always great to talk to you. And it feels like we get to catch up.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
thank you for having me on.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.